Hey everybody out there, Chris here, and welcome back to another Dark Avenger Comic Book review. As you guys can see, I got my camera back, I got my comics back, and this is the official 201st Dark Avenger Comic Book review, not to be mistaken for 201.1, which was uploaded on this channel on the day where this review should have been up. And I promise you guys that I will work really hard to make sure that that does not happen again, at least before my official comic review. Probably it'll happen after. There's no avoiding this right now. But we'll talk more on Dark Mike or Rise or whatever the heck his name is at the end of the show. There will be mention of this and why Mike is not here. The real Mike. But until then, let's talk about some comic books. We are talking about the comics that were released on September 4th, 2013, and I'm going to say right off the bat, you can expect every single Villains Month issue, whether they be good or not, on this review for the next 4 weeks. However, the covers are going to vary between 3D and 2D. Next week, all the books I got in 3D due to the fact that they were 15% off, but now they're not. I don't know, but I ended up buying them all in 3D because there was 15% off. If it goes back to being a full price, then there will be a mix of 2D and 3D. There will be a couple 2Ds anyway. Basically, I bought the books in 3D that I knew I would like the supervillain on the cover, and then the books in 2D to save the dollar, and also because I probably figured those books weren't that good. However, I did make a mistake this week, which we will get into during the comic review, and now I wish I had gotten that cover in 3D. But let's get to that when we get to that. First, let's talk about Garfield issue 17. Guilty pleasure. Have to mention it. Don't have Sonic. Dark Rise ended up taking it away, but that was also a spectacular book. This is just a guilty pleasure, but I love reading it each and every week. Lisa Moore, member of Dark Avenger Inc., does the coloring work on this book, and this is, for any Garfield fan out there, you will like this book. And that's it for the indies. So now let's go into Marvel, which I really, scary enough, the next couple of weeks I don't have that many books coming out of Marvel. Ever since I dropped Infinity, I really don't have too many. Or maybe that's just because everything's moving out towards the middle of the month. Iron Man, issue number 15. Tony Stark versus 451. And Tony Stark has his anti-hack stuff in his armor. He has Pepper prepped to go, and he's got a bunch of robot puppets that he's going to use against 451. And it's an all-out fight between 451 and Tony Stark. And Tony's trying to explain to him the God Killer won't accept him. And there's some really nice splash pages, by the way. And 451 won't believe him, and finally Tony Stark proves it to him after, of course, destroying 451's hacking mechanism in his robot body. Oh, just go with it. And 451 realizes that he all of a sudden gets this epiphany. I was wrong. The ends aren't justifying the means. So basically, he sends the God Killer as well as Tony Stark to a pocket. He's sending them to a pocket universe where neither of them can be found again. He's trying to rectify his mistake, and things are not looking too good for Tony Stark at the end of this issue. But I don't think we'll be seeing 451 ever again. To be continued at the end of the month. This was an interesting issue, but it took so long to get to this point in time where everybody saw this coming. I don't know. And I don't know where this is going to lead into in the future story arc, but apparently this is going to lead into something in the next story arc, and I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to wait. I'm not determining whether I'm keeping the series or not until the next story arc begins. But I just feel like ever since the Invincible Iron Man ended, we haven't gotten a story that equals up to the awesome stories that came out of Invincible Iron Man yet. They're trying, they're reaching for it, but they're just not grasping it. They're not touching it the right way yet, which I hope they will at some point. Superior Spider-Man 17, and I'm going to explain why this was kind of a letdown. Everybody's so excited. Spider-Man 2099 is coming, and we saw it in the Age of Ultron 10.1, and we saw that it was coming at the end of Age of Ultron as well, in issue 10. But this issue was more, I feel, like a setup. Stone is going after Max Modell and Horizon Labs. His next target, of course, being Spider-Man, but Max Modell gets arrested. Spider-Man, Doc Ock, swears he's gonna figure out what's going on. Then he actually makes fun of having a spider sense, which I found funny. And in the past, it turns out that Spider-Man 2099's great-grandfather was Stone, so he has to go back in time and prevent Stone's death, apparently, is what I'm getting, because Tiberus Stone, there you go, because apparently something happens during this time rift, and Spider-Man might end up killing, or something might end up happening to Stone, and that basically erases Spider-Man 2099 from existence, which is not good. So 2099 Spider-Man jumps into present day thanks to the machine that was invented, for those of you that remember from previous Amazing Spider-Man story arc, where Spider-Man walked through that portal that was made by one of his friends. I forgot his name, but Grady, the Time Door Grady invented, and it caused a rift. It was a 2-part story arc that was really good. Now he reached out into the future, and Spider-Man 2099 came through, and it basically ends where the story should have began, and it's Spider-Man 2099 versus the superior Spider-Man to save basically his life. Because if he doesn't save Stone, then that means Spider-Man 2099 will be erased from existence forever. There was this stupid thing in the beginning of the book that kind of got me a little annoyed, where the scientists in the year 2099 were showing Spider-Man that he already went back in time, and if he doesn't go back in time, it's going to cause a paradox. How is that true? If he doesn't go back in time, then it'll just erase the fact that he was back in time. How is it going to cause a paradox? It would cause a paradox if he met himself. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this was such heavy dialogue, and there were parts where I'm like, okay. Yay, Stone is going after Max Modell and Horizon Labs. And there's somehow a connection there with Spider-Man 2099. And Doc Ock is completely oblivious because obviously he's been too busy playing Spider-Man. It was an okay issue. I'm looking forward to the next one more, and we'll see if I hold on to this series after this story arc is over. We also get a bit with the Green Goblin, but read the book and you'll find out the bit with Green Goblin. Venom 40! Beginning of Mania, and we get a huge revelation in this book. It turns out that the brand that Flash has had for so long from Hell is no longer on him. Why? Spoiler alert, if you will. Really? Because I don't think anybody cared about that Circle of 4 or whatever. Everybody kind of hated that. It was moved over to Mania. Andy now has the mark. So, Flash is having these visions about himself as Venom, and the world, you know, in a basically turmoil, and himself, like, over all of it, and the world is basically hell. I don't know. And I don't know. I found that interesting. And then you have Mania, who wants to go after Lord Ogre because of her father's death. I love the way they animated her a bit at times. She's a smartass, and you get that through the symbiote, and you can see why the symbiote has bonded to her. The Venom symbiote has always been one of those symbiotes that looks to attach itself onto a sad or a desperate or a person at their lowest, and then manipulate them and basically just take over. Even though the host believes he or she is in control, he or she is not. Perfect example was Eddie Brock for a time. He was not in control until finally he kind of snapped himself out of it, so to speak. So Flash ends up getting called away to Austin, Texas, where he finds out that Damian Hellstrom is dead, but he's not, because it turns out that Vicky found out that he's popping up in all different spots of the world. While Flash told Andy, lay low, when I get back we're going to go after Lord Ogre in full force. Andy, of course, does not listen. And you get this really creepy Venom face that looks like it was copy and pasted onto her body. Which, like I said, is weird. But she is going after Lord Ogre without Venom. Mania is doing it on her own, and she actually proclaims her name in... where was it? I believe it's... here. She proclaims her name as Mania. And then that's where we find out about Damian Hellstrom and the branding, so to speak. And I won't give away the ending, but all forces are going towards Andy and Venom is not in Pennsylvania at the moment. So hopefully he'll get back by the next issue. This is the final story arc where it is quoted, Cullen Bunn said that he's going to be wrapping up all the things that have been building up since issue 1 up until now. Also, it sets up future dates, future things with Venom in it. Probably the Superior Spider-Man story arc. Will we see Mania after this? Who knows? A lot of people who are subscribed to or get a subscription to Venom are being moved over to the Thunderbolts, where Venom is still working. That's basically Venom's team. So if you do have a subscription or have Venom on your pull list, make sure you double check that your comic shop does not switch you over to the Thunderbolts if you don't want them, because that's what most, I believe that's what Comixology and Previews are doing. Is there, not Previews, I think just Comixology is switching people over to Venom's team book, where Venom is still going to be a part of. So just make sure you guys are on top of that, because they are doing that. They're switching you guys over to Thunderbolts. And the Thunderbolts, in my opinion, just hasn't been done right yet, and you don't want poor quality, and you don't want to pay for a book that you possibly don't want anyway. But this book it was an interesting book, and it's a good intro to yet another symbiote. Looking forward to the next book. Artwork was really nice as well. Next two books, and the final two books actually from Marvel, are the two, I am not getting, as I said, Infinity anymore, and I will be reading Forever Evil from DC. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. However, I decided I wasn't going to buy it because I didn't want to end up getting all the time. Like, it's not an event that's in one book. It's an event that reaches out to all the team books. But beside the point, since I'm not getting Infinity, I'm getting X-Men Battle of the Atom, issue number 1. I'm getting the full run of the X-Men Battle of the Atom. I was on and off. I was going to get it, then I wasn't going to get it, then I was going to get it. I finally decided I'm going to get it. It looks interesting, and thank you, Lord, I did. In this first part, which then goes right into the all-new X-Men, but we'll get into that in a moment. You stay there. For now, we're going to talk about Battle of the Atom, Chapter 1, Number 1. This all starts with number 1, and then it ends next month, at the end of next month, in issue number 2, after all the tie-ins. I believe there's 2 tie-ins for each. So, the future looks dark and bleak for the X-Men. But that's the future. We're going into the present, and a new mutant has popped up. So, the Xavier School, and it turns out the mutant, by the way, spoiler alert, is a villain. She was a criminal. She has a rap sheet a mile long. So basically, enters the all-new X-Men, where they're going to try to stop her or recruit her. I don't even know what the heck they were doing. But out of nowhere, in the middle of all this, return the Sentinels. And then it becomes a huge fight between the all-new X-Men and the Sentinels. Thank you, Lord, that and I can't believe I'm about to say this, the Uncanny X-Men show up. and they help the all-new X-Men put an end to the Sentinels. But, and this is where the story arc really, the story starts to really unfold. Young Scott gets shot by one of the dormant Sentinel heads and basically dies, or is on the brink of death, and the the present day Cyclops disappears. Christopher, part of the Uncanny X-Men, who has the ability to heal, ends up healing young Scott, and present day Scott shows up or reappears, and we find out how bad or how dangerous it is to have the young X-Men in the present day. So the Wolverine X-Men decide they're sending the young X-Men back because it's too much of a risk, it's too dangerous to have them in the present. Now you figure this out. But anyway, just as they're about to send them back, some other time cube shows up and enters the X-Men of the future. And that's where this book ends. However, for the first release, or the first week of these books, we get not only part 1, but part 2 in All New X-Men issue number 16. This is it. After this, guys, it's only 1 issue a week. At the end of each book, you get a checklist. I want to show you guys the checklist. I hope it's in this book. Yeah, it should be. Each week has 1 book from this moment forth after this first week of the Battle of the Atom, which is good. It's like an episode a week for another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Another 8 weeks. Hooray, I think. So, going back into the story now, the X-Men from the future are basically decide to travel back in time again to warn the X-Men of the present that they're about to make a serious mistake involving the even younger X-Men. And they're trying to explain you can't send them back. The original X-Men should have never come here to begin with. A visit maybe, but that's it. And you get Charles Xavier's grandson, who looks a bit like Charles Xavier. And no, it's not, oh, what was that guy that Mike was reviewing? Legion. Legion, that's right. It's not Legion, it's, maybe it is it's Legion's son, I don't know. Whoever it is, out of nowhere, Wolverine pops his claws, but it's not him, and it causes a huge fight between the future X-Men and the present-day X-Men, and it's calmed down after like 1 page, and it turns out 2 X-Men have gone missing. Jean and Scott. And then it rewinds the book a bit to where Jean is talking with Beast, saying that there's something wrong. The X-Men from the future are blocking their brains. I can't see into their memories if they're who they really are. And Beast is like, and she's like, we got to get out of here. We have to leave. Are you with me? He's like, no, something fantastic is happening here, and we need to pay attention. And then Beast kind of like looks away, and then Jean reaches out to Cyclops and tells him the same thing. And she's like, you want to go with me? And he's like, okay. And then she's the one that pops Wolverine's claws, and when the fight happens, they basically run away. They sneak away. And there's some dialogue between young Cyclops and Jean. We also get a reveal to one of the characters in the future, and the dire reason why this character went back in time from the future to make sure that the young X-Men never either never come to the present or are sent back to the past before something bad happens. And I'm not going to spoil it in this issue, but we'll find out. You guys will find. We'll talk about it next week in X-Men number 5. But this was a really good first 2 parts. I wasn't expecting to like this because events in me lately, Marvel's had so far this year, we've had Minimum Carnage, which is something like what's going on in the X-Men books. We've had Infinity and we've had Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron, you only needed the first and last comic to understand the series. Minimum Carnage, if you can avoid it at all costs, avoid it. Superior Carnage is looking to be better, but let's see where it goes from the issue that we're up to now. And then Infinity happened, and Infinity is a huge tie-in between Avengers, New Avengers, and the Infinity book. I'm not willing to buy 16 issues to get the full story there, so I decided to skip out on Infinity. If Infinity is good, I'll just do what I said I would have done if Age of Ultron was good. I'll trade paperback it. If Infinity is good and they make an omnibus, I'll buy the omnibus. Money is not, you know, as strong in the beginning of the my work, so I have to pick and choose, especially with Marvel double ups. Marvel double ups makes it very hard, very hard to pick and choose which books I keep, which books I don't keep. So I decided to forego buying any more Infinity books for now. Not saying it's a bad miniseries, just saying I'm not interested in buying the Avengers, New Avengers, and Infinity altogether. I walked away from Avengers, and here's another thing that I find very stupid. After Infinity, I believe either in December or next year in January, Avengers is getting renumbered again. Avengers are basically starting back off at number 1. Will that happen to New Avengers? Will it happen to Secret Avengers? Will it happen to all the books that have tie-ins to Infinity? I don't know. But right now, Marvel has announced that Avengers are going back to issue 1 again. We're rewinding. Not even 20-something issues in, we are going to rewind back to issue number 1 again. Okay, it's only been about 2 years, but if this is what Marvel wants to do, I personally think it's stupid. We got to issue 20 and now we're getting another volume started right away. Anyway, this was a really good miniseries. I'm very happy I decided to stick with it. I would definitely say for you guys to check out the Battle of the Atom. The first 2 parts, see if you like it. And before we go to a commercial break, I do want to talk about 2 books before we get into the Villains Month books from DC. First book was DC versus Masters of the Universe, issue number 1. I only got 1 cover, the DC Universe side. And the only character that is from the DC Universe in this book is John Constantine. That's it. The rest of the book is tied into He-Man and what's going on in He-Man. Unfortunately, I'm not reading He-Man. I decided not to get He-Man because I was buying too many Marvel books at the time, and now I'm very far back in the He-Man books. So now either I can play catch-up or I can just not read it, which is what I'm basically not doing at this time, is reading it. So He-Man and the Masters of the Universe are trying to take Eternia back, and that's what I gather anyway. They end up saving Evelyn, who tells them that Skeletor is alive and they're looking for a planet which they found, which is the DC Universe, and he's going to drain the planet of its life and whatever, and it's going to make him more powerful. The whole plot kind of bored me because it's kind of like, okay, so Skeletor's already in the DC Universe and he's working with I forgot her name already. If I can remember her name. I can't remember her name at all. But John Constantine sits down with He-Man's mother, and she's trying to explain to him what's going on. Of course he's a jerk, of course he disrespects her, and when you disrespect a queen, that's what you get. So, no Justice League other than, like I said, John Constantine. There is mention of the House of Secrets, which is where Skeletor and this girl, whose name completely escapes me at the moment, are hiding from the rest of the DC Universe. And basically He-Man ends up in the DC Universe because of Evelyn. To be continued. And I love, this is what makes me oh so excited for the next issue. The mere mention of the word crisis scares the crap out of me now, because every time DC mentions the word crisis, some crazy stuff happens. But it says crisis on whichever Earth this turns out to be. This was an interesting first issue, but I feel like it was very slow paced, very slow paced. It's a good setup, I will give it that. We know why Skeletor's in the DC universe. We know that John Constantine is involved already. And actually it's funny because John Constantine calls Skeletor a myth, and Attorney and everybody else myths and whatever, because that's what he believed them as. And when Skeletor finds out about John Constantine, he says, I believed him as myth or whatever. So it's kind of funny, but everybody knows who John Constantine is, apparently because he's everywhere, or believed to be myth everywhere. So I found that funny. I enjoyed the He-Man parts a bit. I would like to see the Justice League somehow get put into this at some point. I'm sure by the next issue they will be, but this was a good setup issue, but that's all you get with this issue. If you're looking for Justice League meeting the Masters of the Universe in this issue, you're not getting that. This is basically this is the equivalent of a Marvel .1 issue. Without it being a .1 issue, it's an issue 1. Is it worth the money? Absolutely. It's a $2.99 book. I would definitely say give it a read. However, if you're looking for the meeting of the Justice League and Masters of the Universe, I think we're going to have to wait till the next issue. It was an okay read this week. I would say it's an average rating book. This book, however, was spectacular. I didn't even think about buying this book until we talked about it on the live show, and Kat actually brought it to my attention. I was going to look over this book, especially because Villains Month, I've got a ton of books. I was going to ignore this book, let it go, whatever. I didn't care because it's a digital first book. Batman, Black and White, issue number 1. Several stories in one book. I have the index here. This book has Don't Know Where, Don't Know When, which is my favorite story in here. Why? Because it involves a certain superhero known as Superman. Batman is missing. Well, let's get through the other books. There's Batman Zombie, Justice is Served, Driven, and Head Games. Now we're going into the first story arc, which is my favorite. Don't Know When, Don't Know Where, Don't Know When. Batman's missing, but Robin is not giving up. He's trying to figure out where Batman is, and he enlists the help of Superman. And Robin actually, but the team of Robin and Superman actually find a way to find Batman. And that's basically the first story right there. Next is a story by, written and drawn by Neil Adams. And with that, I'm getting the alert. So, come back. We'll finish off Batman. We'll be right back after this commercial break, I should say. So after the commercial break, we will continue with Batman Black and White, and then we will go into Villains Month. So stick around, everybody. We will be right back after this commercial break. Everybody, welcome back to this week's Dark Avenger Comic Book Review. House of Mystery, by the way, not House of Secrets, because I have a feeling somebody's going to say something in the comments about that. I noticed that after we went on break, and now we're back into Batman Black and White. And the second story is by Neil Adams, drawn and written by. And it's Batman Zombie. And it's basically a nightmare that Bruce is having. I'm not going to spoil the story, but it was interesting. I like the artwork in the next story, which was basically Harley and Ivy, and this is Justice is Served. It was a fun story with Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. I enjoyed it a lot, and I love the last page, which I will spoil because it's hilarious. Joker, a fat Joker, and you want to know how he ended up fat? Read the book. It involves, I will say this, it involves hamburgers. I get the feeling there's some subliminal messages here. Anyway, next story, which is Driven. I found the story okay. The artwork kind of didn't... It was very sketchy, let's put it that way, so I kind of didn't get into the story as much as I did the other books. But it was still a very enjoyable read. And as always, definitely recommend you guys check this entire book out. Worth the $4.99. An enjoyable read all around. If you read digitally first, check this out digitally. Black and White Batman, really good. Enjoy it. Coming back for issue 2 all the way through to 6. It's a 6-issue mini series in print form. Also, just to note, for those of you Smallville fans, after this month, or no, after November, Smallville will stop coming out in numbers, and instead of coming out like Smallville season 11 issue this, that, and the other thing, it's going to come out Smallville and then the title of the episode and however many parts it is. So it's going to be a little condensed mini-series, but it's going to continue on forward just like as if Smallville would. I don't know why DC's doing that and not just numbering it, but whatever. This was really good. Highly recommend you guys check it out. And with that, we are now officially in Villains Month. Everything here is a Villains Month tie-in. Was it all good? Was it all bad? Was it good and bad? Honestly, I feel that it was a balanced scale for this week's books. There are 13 one-shots as well as Forever Evil, issue number 1. The first book, Count Vertigo, issue number 1, also known as Green Arrow 23.1. I don't read Green Arrow. That's Mike's book. Mike would know who Count Vertigo is more than I, but this was basically an origin story and how he got his psychic abilities. This was an interesting read. The only reason why I'm mentioning this first is not because it was a bad book. It was actually really good, and the artwork was really good as well. I'm just not reading Green Arrow at this time. I'm reading so many other books. I'm not reading it at this time, so I'm just throwing it out there just for the sheer fact to have mention of this issue for Villains, for this week of Villains Month, because I will be reviewing each and every one of the 52 Villains Month issues. Yeah, I know, I undertook a crazy thing. But anyway, really good issue. If you are reading Green Arrow, if you are interested in knowing more about Count Vertigo, I would absolutely highly recommend you guys check out this book. If I was reading Green Arrow, this would probably be in my top 3. Now they're in order of my favorite to my least favorite to my favorite. Creeper, number 1, also known as Justice League Dark 23. This is written by Dan Didio. Enough said right there. Enough said. The story was a bit all over the place. I'm not a fan of Dan Didio's writing. It's basically the origin of the Creeper. He is trapped in Katana's father's sword, and this is back before Katana got her father's sword, and it connects to something that happened in Katana number 4, I believe, yeah, where her sword was broken and Creeper got free. He stole this body. He stole actually Jack Ryder, who was a television reporter. He steals his body, brings him back to life, and now he basically is... Jack Ryder is now the Creeper. So during the day, he's Jack Ryder, and then at night, when the sun goes down, he turns into the Creeper, or that's what I'm gathering. And there's a scene where it's evening, and you see that Jack is slowly turning into the Creeper, and that he becomes the Creeper, and there's a tornado, a billion people die, and they're always questioning how Jack Ryder is always on the scene before everybody else, and it actually ends with Jack Ryder on the scene, and there's nobody left alive to say, hey, Jack Ryder actually is the Creeper. This is my least favorite book this week from all the Villains Month books. I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't get it in 3D because I had a feeling I wasn't going to enjoy it. This was definitely one of those books they just put in to have a spot taken for the 52 books. I feel as if some of these villain one-shots were literally put in just to literally have a spot taken. This was one of them. That, or they just put in ridiculous stories with certain characters, which we will get into very soon. Ventriliquest #1, also known as Batman The Dark Knight, issue 23.1. If you are a fan of Batgirl, you're going to want to read this, because this expands on the origin of the Ventriloquist. We got the origin in Batgirl, but this is the extended version of it. You have these guys, really quick, a lot of these books take place during the first issue of Forever Evil. Some of them, not all of them. Creeper does not. Count Vertigo does not. I'll mention the ones that are, and this one is. Basically, Metropolis, Gotham is dark, and people are looking for shelter, for stuff like that, and they end up at this, what's it called? The, theater. And apparently the Ventriloquist is there. This is where she is, and there's free food and drinks and whatnot, so they go in, they have some free food, and then they end up going to sit in the audience. From there, it flashes back and forth through time. It goes back to when the Ventriloquist was born, all the way through, and it turns out she was ignored most of her life. And her brother was like the main star, and then she started to develop her psychic or whatever type of abilities, and she ends up killing her brother. And then we get, of course, the scene where she kills the clown with the Ventriloquist doll, and then her and the doll end up being a team for the rest of her life, or up until present day. It was interesting. Then you get some people who broke into the theater because they wanted the food, and Ventriloquist makes quick work of them. It was a creepy book, I will say that, especially with the death scenes. And it turns out, spoiler alert, the food was poisoned. That was it. That was it. You get added on background story on the Ventriloquist, and really nothing interesting in the present, except that she's basically, she still wants to be a star. She still wants an audience, and she still wants to perform in front of people, alive or dead apparently. Once again, only a small step up from the Creeper book, because at least it gives a little bit more background on the Ventriloquist, and you learn a little bit more about her. However, it's only a brief step up from the Creeper book. And to be honest, Dessaad #1, also known as Earth 2 15.1, is a small step up from Creeper as well. Dessaad and Ventriloquist both are even this week. So these are like my lower tier books for this week. Dessaad, it was all about how he came to, I believe he's on Earth 2, or our Earth. He's on the main DC Universe Earth, Earth 1. We'll call it Earth 1, even though it probably is Earth 1. And he does some sick and gruesome stuff to people, and he feeds off of their pain and their misery and their suffering. And all for who? Is Lord Darkseid. And there's really no connection to Forever Evil here. There's a funny scene towards the end of the book where he goes after this human who is actually a, spoiler alert, a comic book writer. We didn't see that coming. And I don't know, he was gonna try to take him and make him miserable, but it turns out he says, you know what, it's a waste. And he goes back, and it's all so he can go home to Darkseid. And it says Earth 2 returns next month with issue 16. We don't even know where we're going to see Dessaad next. I believe Dessaad is going to be in World's Finest, because it has Power Girl and Huntress on the cover. I might be picking up World's Finest after Villains Month. We'll see where that goes. But once again, more along the lines of just a spotlight on Dessaad. That's it. If you're reading World's Finest, where Dessaad is in, then this book will interest you. If you're not, like myself, I have not been reading World's Finest as of yet. I will be catching up, hopefully, with the World's Finest book, the World's Finest series, and continuing forward. But if I wasn't, I wouldn't be interested in this book. So, once again, it's up to you guys with Dessaad. We're moving up a little bit. Actually, I would like to... Yeah, I'll do this one first. Grodd #1, also known as The Flash, issue 23.1. This book was... So, now this book takes place during Forever Evil. It's a couple of months... They don't really say how long ago it was. It says Central City before the fall of the Justice League. And the people from Gorilla City and Central City are working together. They look to bring peace between Central City and the humans and the apes. And then out of nowhere enters Gorilla Grodd, who is brought back to, or saved from the Speed Force by the crime syndicate. And of course, he believes the apes are better than the humans. They should be their superiors. The apes decide to attack Grodd, and in the end, Grodd kills not only apes but humans alike, until finally the apes acknowledge him as their king once again. The humans go into slavery. Central City becomes the new Gorilla City, and this is the dumbest part of the entire book. Grodd is on top. He's the leader. He's the king again. I'm the master. He's the master of everything people see in Central City. And then he gets bored and runs away, basically. So Grodd comes back because the villain, the crime syndicate, saved him to enslave the humans in Central City, just to get bored and leave. And it says I believe it says Grodd's story is continued in Forever Evil. Yeah, to be continued in Forever Evil, Rogue's Rebellion. So for those of you that will be getting there are 3 series connected to Forever Evil: Rogue's Rebellion, Arkham something, and Argus. I'm probably going to be getting all 3. But I guess we'll be seeing more of Gorilla Grodd in the Rogues mini story. And he did all that. I feel like I read this entire book, and then in the last page, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter, because he got bored and left. And why did he even bother with Central City to begin with? Why didn't he just go off and try to enslave the world or something? But no, he gets bored, and he leaves. Wow. And this is why I got it in 2D. Speaking of monkeys, the Joker, issue #1, also known as Batman 23.1, which I got 3D. This was surprisingly a disappointment. A huge disappointment. You know, when we get this book, we're expecting... I know we're not going to see the Joker's origin, because obviously we're going to be seeing that in the Batman Zero Year, I believe. But I expected something more than, oh, the Joker always wanted to have a family, so he steals a baby monkey and raises it as his child. And once again, just like in Gorilla Grodd's story, in the end, spoiler alert, which really it isn't really a spoiler alert, the monkey dies, and the Joker just laughs it off and says, I'm going to need a refund for all those swimming lessons because the monkey's gone. Once again, making this book completely and utterly useless. This is basically a story of the Joker and his monkey. This isn't a story about the Joker after he cut his face off. Nothing. We get bits and pieces in when Joker was a child and how his mother mistreated him, which obviously led to him becoming the Joker. But I mean, the artwork was kind of creepy, which I guess fits the Joker, but it's the Joker and his son, the little ape, who becomes a big monkey. I mean, really? DC, that's really what you're going to give us for the Joker? I was expecting something else. I mean, I know I wasn't expecting the first meeting between the Joker and Batman, because we're obviously either going to get that in year 0, or 0 year as they call it, or something else, but I was expecting something more than the Joker and his monkey. This book was a joke. It definitely fits the Joker, but it's like, really? This book has nothing to do with anything. And if you're buying it just for the 3D cover, it's worth it for the cover. The cover is sick. Awesome. And I'm very glad I got it in 3D at least. But the story, not so much. The story just... It's a story that you're going to forget about the second... issue 24 comes out and 0 year starts up again. That's my opinion. Because everybody was expecting this spectacular, huge Joker story, and we only got Joker and his pet ape. Two-Face, also known as number 1, also known as Batman and Robin 23.1. This takes place fully in during Forever Evil number 1. Two-Face is in Gotham and he's flipping coins around, and Scarecrow invites him to a meeting with some people that are going to help the supervillains and work with them. This all connects to Forever Evil number 1. If you're not reading Forever Evil number 1, if you didn't read it and you read this, you'd be like, what's going on here? And there's this little coin with Owlman on it, and Scarecrow basically is passing the word around, and Two-Face basically flips a coin. Heads, he accepts the invite. Tails, he doesn't. It was heads, so he accepts the invite, and Scarecrow leaves. Then he says, okay, heads, I save Gotham. Tails, I make it bleed. And it lands on heads. So he goes out and does swift justice, or sick, twisted justice. And you get a couple of flashbacks to when he was a lawyer. Every other panel when he goes back into his old law firm or old courthouse that he used to lawyer in. Yeah. And basically he acts as judge, jury, and executioner. Heads, they die. Tails, life sentence in jail. And lots of times they got heads and they didn't make it. And then you get these guys that are working for the crime syndicate that come in and say, if they're not able to do it, the society has vested interest in making sure this death sentence is seen being handed out by one of its own. So basically, the secret society doesn't like that the Two-Face is doing it. He's like, heads, life imprisonment, tails, death. And he gets life. And the guy says, I'm not doing that. And you just get a all-out gunfight. And he's like, you do realize you've completely pissed on my wishes and negated the entire deal, which the deal was that Two-Face was going to show up at the secret society meeting, which ironically he does anyway, so the deal wasn't negated. But at the end of the story, he flips another coin, same thing, heads I save Gotham, tails I make it bleed, and it lands on tails. So obviously that's why he probably went to the secret society meeting or the crime syndicate meeting. It was an interesting book, definitely a lot better than the other books that I just mentioned. I enjoyed reading it. Was it a top, amazing, spectacular book? No. But it still was a very interesting read. I enjoyed reading it. Next up is Poison Ivy, number 1, or Batman Detective Comics, number 23.1. And yes, I got this cover in 3D, and obviously you guys know why. It's an awesome cover. You get a bit of background story with Poison Ivy, but this story does take place once again during issue 1 of Forever Evil. And Poison Ivy basically is doing what she does best, using her green thumb to green up the entire Gotham City. Basically, she's working with the crime syndicate now. She makes mention that she did work with a team until it outdid its usefulness. And you get her background story on how she grew up and how her father killed her mother and then buried her in the garden, and then how she graduated school, college. She became this big thing. She worked for Bruce Wayne for a time, and then he basically fires her and she went crazy, and that's how she became Poison Ivy. And then basically Poison Ivy wants to basically make Gotham this So, that's what her plan is. And that's it. So Poison Ivy wants to take Gotham and turn it into an entire green forest city thing. She wants to green up Metropolis, Gotham. I want to keep saying Metropolis, Gotham. That's the long and short of it. It was an interesting issue. If you're a fan of Poison Ivy, you will love this. If you're not a fan of Poison Ivy and don't care about this book in any way, shape, or form, you don't have to read it. But it does take place during Forever Evil #1. Does it tie into Forever? Do you have to read this to understand what's going on in Forever Evil? Let me make it very clear. None of these villain one-shots are imperative to read to understand what happens in Forever Evil. If you only read Forever Evil, you will be fine. Same thing goes for the Justice League of America, and Justice League Dark books. You don't have to read them to know what's going on in Forever Evil. However, it expands and stretches the story out. But they are not necessities. Darkseid #1, also known as Justice League number 23.1. The origin of Darkseid, how he became Darkseid, how he basically killed each and every one of the gods of his planet and absorbed their power to become a new god, basically Darkseid, which is here, and how Darkseid's brother was given his powers by a dying god, and how their struggle began, and the origin of the new gods as well, because obviously Allfather and Darkseid are now new gods. Allfather wants Darkseid to join him instead. They fight. Their world becomes Apocalypse, and the new gods forge their way in elsewhere. However, once you get to the middle of the book, however, we find out that most of the word bubbles, the person who's telling the story, is Kaio. And if you have not been reading Batman Superman, you won't know who that is. If you are reading Batman Superman, I keep wanting to call it Superman Batman, you know who he is, because he is a person who is causing a lot of trouble between the young Batman and Superman. And he is also a pest to Darkseid. And he's actually the one, we learned, spoiler alert, that opened up the DC Universe to Darkseid. Darkseid actually saw Superman in his glance into the DC Universe, or Earth 1, and his interest in Superman led into the events of the first Justice League story arc, which is why I guess this book is connected to Justice League. And there are moments that they show from Justice League in the first story arc in this book. We also get to see the chair that I forgot his name used, and you also see that Darkseid leaves Kaio alone because he reminds him so much of himself. And we also get some an interesting final page. But if you want to know where Darkseid strikes next, read Batman and Superman and Earth 2. I don't know why and Earth 2. Darkseid is not in Earth 2. I thought it was Steppenwolf that was in Earth 2. But beside the point, very interesting book. And Darkseid's interest in Superman definitely is all because of Mr. Kaio. And this is an awesome 3D cover. I've seen this cover everywhere since they started promoting the 3D covers for DC Comics. I had to get this in 3D. And it's a really nice cover. Really interesting. I'm reading Batman, Superman, and I am reading Earth 2, so it's going to be interesting to see where we see Darkseid next. This does not take place during Forever Evil #1. Nor does Relic #1, also known as Green Lantern 23.1. We get the origin story of Relic. That is exactly what this is. Millions and millions of eons before the universe was, this was the emotional spectrum and the beings that controlled those spectrums. And Relic wanted them to forego their ways, and he looked for, I forgot what he went looking for. He saw the lightsmiths, they started to dim, and he began a journey to I forgot what it was, but his journey was to enlighten the others, and to he gets to the source wall, which they don't call it the source wall, which I found interesting. What was he doing? I want to make sure I got this right. Yeah, he was afraid that they were going to end up destroying one another because of the major differences. Like, for example, the terror of losing it, fury towards the gluttony, like the red versus the orange. He was afraid there was going to be an all-out war, so he went out to prove that he wasn't a relic. In time, he wanted to prove that there's more. And it turns out by the time he got back, everybody was dead. The world, the universe consumed itself and then exploded back out, which then reached, it goes into the beginning of Green Lantern, New Guardians, a couple of issues back. And then if you want to see more, read issue 24 of Green Lantern, where Lights Out begins. This has nothing to do with Forever Evil at all. This is basically an origin story to the new supervillain of the Green Lantern universe, and it leads into Lights Out. And you now understand why Relic feels the way he does about the other Lantern Corps. Very interesting. Highly recommend you guys check it out. Love the 3D cover. Now, this is the only book I regret not getting a 3D cover to, and I hope to God I will find a first printing of it in 3D, because it definitely, I should have, it deserved a 3D cover, because this was a spectacular book and I underestimated it. Justice League of America, issue number 7.1, also known as Deadshot number 1. Just give me 2 seconds because I gotta click the button on the camera because the thing is going up, so 1 second, and we're back. Okay, so Deadshot. I should have gotten this book in 3D. Deadshot is like the Punisher, which once again reminds me of my brother. Except his family was killed, and you actually see he's reading a Western revenge book, also known as Shot Dead. See that? His name in reverse. So his family dies, but it's not on purpose. These men decide to kill these junkies, so to speak, who owe money. Or something like that. They were basically being made an example of, and the bullets go through the wall and kills everybody except Deadshot. So Deadshot automatically wants revenge. He learns how to shoot a gun, he learns how to perfect everything, and how to become an assassin. For money, of course. And of course, the more jobs he does, the more money he makes. The more you go, the more in time. The more forward we move in time, the more intricate he makes his weapons and his job, and then we finally get Deadshot, present day, and making tons of money now, and he's talking about his life and how everything finally came full circle when he got to the people that ended up killing his family. And then, in the last 3 pages, we get the tie-in to Forever Evil, where Amanda Waller actually is calling to Deadshot for help, and he's like, I told you after Suicide Squad I didn't want to be bothered anymore, leave me alone. He's like, I only work for money. She's like, right now the world doesn't care about it, we'll give you your money, we need to get a team together, we need you to get the team back together. So Deadshot goes off and it says to be continued in Suicide Squad issue number 24. So if you want to see Deadshot continue forward, check out Suicide Squad issue 24. I enjoyed this book. I loved it. I wish I got it in 3D. It was a really good origin story. You understand more about Deadshot after reading this issue, and I just really enjoyed it a lot, and I highly recommend you guys check it out. If you can get the cover in 3D, get it in 3D. This looks like it would have been a spectacular 3D cover. I'm hoping to get it in first printing, but if not, when the second printing come out, hopefully they'll be individual. I'll probably end up getting a second copy of this in 3D because this was spectacular. I should have gotten it in 3D. Wish I did, but this was one of my top 3 books. There's only 2 books left, and yeah, duh, they're both Superman. First one being Superman number 23.1, also known as Bizzaro number 1. This book was spectacular. And as always, it's Lex Luthor that starts the Bizzaro experiment. He stole DNA from Superman back in the Action Comics first story arc. And now he's looking to make his own Superman. He envisions this as his own Superman. And he gets this willing volunteer who gets injected with, I forgot what it's called. It's a shot, a K shot. And slowly he evolved through the solar, concentrated sunlight, or like makeshift concentrated sunlight. He becomes just like Superman. However, his cells don't stop replicating, so very quickly he becomes a monster, also known as Bizzaro. And Lex Luthor can't control him. So we have an out-of-control Bizzaro, and Lex Luthor in his head, he's seeing all these things, he's observing everything that's going on. He notices that he has the ice vision and the heat breath instead of ice breath and heat vision. And he finally figures out how to stop Bizzaro. And just like all the previous story arcs, all the previous incarnations of Bizzaro, the first one always dies. This one, however, I must say, is the gruesomest of all the Bizzaro deaths. If you read Man of Steel, when Bizzaro was created by Lex Luthor, he died in his issue. No exception for the New 52, that Bizzaro dies as well. And the only tie-in we see to Bizzaro is to be continued in Forever Evil. It turns out that there is a clone, a B0 clone. This is present day. Bizzaro was taking place in the past. I believe it was during the Action Comics time. 3 years ago. There you go. Around 3 years ago-ish. This was one of my top 2 books. I enjoyed the retelling of the origin of Bizzaro. It ended the way it always does, with Bizzaro dying somehow. Unfortunately, it was a bit more gruesome than I expected. But I loved it. Loved the 3D covers. I'm trying to at least get every single Superman villain in 3D. I know I got next week, so hopefully the last 2 weeks I'll get those in 3D as well. And finally, as far as one-shots this week, Action Comics 23.1, also known as Cyborg Superman #1. This was the best. If you read last month's Supergirl issue 23, you find out that the Cyborg Superman is her father, Zor-El. And this story jumps back and forth from Krypton before it was destroyed to after Krypton is destroyed. Jor-El tries to get Zor-El to help him create spaceship for his son and for Kara, so at least they will live. And maybe they could create more spaceships so more people can survive, because everybody knows that Krypton, him and his brother know that Krypton is going to die. And instead his brother said he stole some Brainiac tech from when he invaded and shrunk Kandor, and he's just going to shrink down Argo City instead and save it that way. Of course, Jor-El says that's a mistake. This isn't about ego or anything. It's a bad idea, and everybody's gonna end up dead. Of course, it's a huge rivalry between Jor-El and Zor-El. And Brainiac, actually, we find out why he changed Zor-El's appearance when he was Cyborg Superman so drastically. It's because he wants to craft the ideal Kryptonian, and he wants to replace all of the remains of Zor-El with his superior, which was Jor-El. And that's why in Supergirl 23, when she said, "You look a lot like my Uncle Jor-El," that's why. Brainiac wanted him to look like his superior, which was Jor-El. So that's why Cyborg Superman looks like Jor-El. And it also explains how Zor-El lost his memories, basically because of all the robotic tech that was put into him. And Brainiac sends him on a mission to search the universe for other specimens worthy of perfection, such as himself, because Cyborg Superman is perfect. We go back in time again to when Zor-El is still working on the tech to shrink down Argo City. His wife is very worried about him. Allura tries to convince him to, you know, get away from his work a bit. Doesn't happen. And then we go back into the present where Cyborg Superman shows up on the planet Kampara looking for perfection. And of course, everywhere he turns, he feels that this, act of cowardice is not perfection. You're not being willing to choose between your friends or anything. That's not perfection. You're, it's not, basically he's looking for perfection, and when he just about thinks he has it, nope. He's like, the strong, the perfect don't beg, the perfect don't this, the perfect don't that. So, we then go back in time 2 days before the destruction of Krypton, and we see that the tech that Zor-El is going to use actually has a homing device for Brainiac, and that is why Brainiac shows up 9 months after Krypton's destruction, and the Kryptonian, the city of Argo, is now basically everybody's dead except Zor-El. That's why how Brainiac found Argo to begin with. The Cyborg Superman part after that, you could see after a while that nobody is going to be worthy of Cyborg Superman's perfection. And then you see Argo City moments before the destruction of Krypton, where Zor-El is talking with Allura, and she's like, this is where he sent Kara off in the spaceship. In case his method doesn't work, at least his daughter will be safe. And I love how Allura says, I wish you could have been a better scientist like your brother. So you see that competition. No matter how much Zor-El tried, Jor-El was always the better scientist. And after the destruction of Krypton, you see that Argo City is slowly, I don't even know what it is, slowly dying, and everybody on the planet is dying, and Zor-El is basically the last one alive. And it then leads into when Brainiac invaded. The end. This was one of the best origin stories. It has nothing to do with Forever Evil, but hell, if you are reading Supergirl, this is a must-read. If you're a Superman fan, this is a must-read. This is amazing, and this is the new Cyborg Superman. It's not Hank Henshaw, it's Zor-El. And it's going to be interesting to see how he goes back into being Cyborg Superman so Kara can live, because in the last issue, Kara died so Cyborg Superman can become whole again. So, it's going to be very interesting come next month. And finally, the final book this week. The big thing on everybody's mind, everybody's lips. Forever Evil, issue number 1. The crime syndicate has killed the Justice League, or at least that's what they're telling everybody. Who is everybody? Every single bleeping villain in the DC universe is everybody. And Lex Luthor is actually forming a team of villains to go up against the crime syndicate. He witnesses Ultraman destroy and then ingest kryptonite. So instead of hurting him, he sees that kryptonite helps him. We also learn in this book that sunlight hurts Ultraman instead of helps him. So that's his opposite with Superman. And Grid has control over all of the power and communications in the entire world. Also, the unfortunate victim of the crime syndicate is Nightwing, who basically gets not only well, first the crime syndicate proves that they killed the Justice League by handing over certain artifacts like Aquaman's trident, Wonder Woman's lasso, and Superman's cape, which you all can see here. The artwork by David Finch is fan-freaking-tastic. Awesome work. Amazing artwork. So the Justice League is dead, and the Crime Syndicate wants the villains to work for them, and as long as they work for them, they're safe. And anyone who opposes them, this happens. Not only do they show a beaten up Nightwing, but Superwoman, spoiler alert, this is the biggest spoiler so far of this event, they unmask him on live television and in front of every single supervillain in the DC Universe as Dick Grayson. And that's not good. And the reason for this, they said, we're not going to kill you if you oppose us. We're going to hunt down and destroy everything you care about. Family, friends, neighbors, everybody will die while you watch. So, that's it. And you just see the world all going to hell. And the ending is epic, where Lex Luthor saying, this is a job for Superman. So where the hell is he? And Ultraman basically pushes the moon in front of the sun so it doesn't hurt him ever again. And we have a permanent eclipse. Also, a bit of a spoiler, Justice League, the Justice League satellite was destroyed by the Crime Syndicate as well. There were other things I left out, but once again, there was the mention of Cord Industries, which hints towards Ted Cord, the original Atom. This was an amazing first issue. The artwork was spectacular, the setup was great, and where's the Justice League? Are they really dead? Of course they're not, because we all know they're going to come back at some point, but where are they? And how the hell are they going to get back to Earth 1? Because Earth 3 has sure as hell invaded Earth 1. Or at least the Crime Syndicate from Earth 3 has invaded and turned the villains and brought the villains over to their side. So now, where is the Justice League? How are they going to get back? And they're going to have one hell of a fight on their hands when they do come back, unless Lex Luthor puts together a crazy team of strong supervillains. Lex Luthor is absolutely the hero, going to be the hero in this story arc, I have a feeling, but wow. This book is the book of the week. I'm sorry, but No Villains One Shot deserves to be considered for any week of this month, a book of the week, because they're all one-shots, and it all depends on which supervillain you like and don't like. This, however, is a book, a serious book that's going to be going for another 6 months. This is my book of the week. It was spectacular. It sets the stage for the next 6 months worth of issues. I'm looking forward to the next issue. Can't wait for it to come out. I'm really enjoying Villains Month, and I'm really pumped for Forever Evil. And it's good to see the Crime Syndicate back, and it's going to be even better to see the Justice League kick their asses back to Earth 3 in the end. And that's it for this week, guys. Okay, speaking of Earth 3 now, let's get into some Dark Rise news. Don't worry, guys, I'm working tirelessly to figure out what the hell's going on with the Dark Avenger Inc. crew, our Earth, and Earth 3, and how the Earth 3 Dark Avenger Inc. crew is somehow coming here. I know it's already affected my brother Mike, Mike Spider Slayer, and now recently Bram Fowler, aka the Gonzo Goose, is now the Gonzo Goose Prime. So slowly but surely, people from Dark Avenger Inc. are being transported, I believe, at least this is my hypothesis, to Earth 3, and their counterparts from Earth 3 are being transported to our Earth. So I'm going to figure out a way to put an end to this by the end of Villains Month. I promise you guys. We'll get the regular Dark Avenger Inc. crew back, and we'll send the Dark Avenger Inc. crew from Earth 3 packing. No matter what the cost. Literally. And with that, that is it for this week. Look forward to the books for next week on next week's episode. So let's run through these books really quickly. A lot of books this week, actually. Alright, sorry about that, guys. The battery completely died. I guess I made this review a bit longer than I expected. Let's run through these books really quickly, and then we'll round out the rest of the week. Forever Evil #1. Awesome. Highly recommend it. My book of the week. And now, once again, the Villains one-shots are all in order from my favorite to my least favorite. Cyborg Superman was awesome. Bizzaro was awesome. Deadshot was awesome. Wish I got it in 3D. Relic was great. Darkseid was great. Poison Ivy was good. Two-Face was good. Joker was a disappointment, as well as Grodd. Dessaad, if you're reading World's Finest, was okay. Ventriliquest, if you're reading Batwoman, was okay. Creeper, my least favorite. 1 star if you were going to star this. Didn't have any interest in this after reading this issue. Not interested in seeing this character any further. This was a waste of a one-shot in my opinion. Count Vertigo was amazing as well, especially if you are reading Green Arrow. Count Vertigo #1 was spectacular as well. I don't read Green Arrow, which is the only reason why it's at the bottom of my pile. Batman Black and White #1 was awesome. Highly recommend you guys check it out. DC Universe versus the Masters of the Universe #1. Perfect. It's a perfect setup, but not really much happens in the form of the Justice League meeting, the Masters of the Universe, or the DC Universe superheroes meeting the Masters of the Universe. Basically, John Constantine is the only character from the DC Universe there, and Madame Xanadu, I believe. All New X-Men #16, as well as X-Men Battle of the Atom #1. Both awesome. This is the first event coming out of Marvel in the year of 2013 that I'm actually interested in, and it looks really good. Venom issue #40. Mania. Interesting story. Looking forward to it, but the mark has moved. Can't wait to see where this is going. This final story arc. Superior Spider-Man #17. A lot of dialogue, and this was a definite setup. Not much happens here except a lot of talking. I'm looking forward to the next issue more. Iron Man issue #15. We all knew it was going to come to this point, but why did it take so long? I have no idea. And then the Guilty Pleasure, which is Garfield issue 17. Also, Sonic the Hedgehog this week came out. It was a really good comic as well. And that's it for this week's Dark Avenger Comic Book Review, guys. Don't forget to check out comicrelated.com, your #1 source for comic-related news, reviews, and a whole bunch more. Don't forget to check out Dark Avenger Inc., where we will be covering every single Villains Month book there is. My books, as well as Mike's books, will be going up middle of the week due to the fact that I had to do this a day late. So this is going to be uploading overnight, and by the time it uploads, it'll be tomorrow during the day. I have to go to work. So our videos will probably go up between Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, and then the first week of Villains Month will be over, and then we're going to be covering every single Villains Month book on Dark Avenger Inc., so don't worry. Everything's going to be covered there. If you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe to Dark Avenger Inc., so we're in your sub box, and you won't miss out on a single video, as well as you won't miss out on the announcement when the website goes up, which will be soon, because things are starting to move along again very nicely. Also, if you're new to this channel and you like what you see, please do click the subscribe button. We are now officially on the road to 300, which we'll hit in about 2 years. So until then, we're not going to make mention of it until there's like 50 episodes left. Anyway, thank you guys so much for sticking around. Keep reading, keep collecting, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.